Man, I just want to lay in the shade, get in those shade, you know what I mean? And pontificate on life. We vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind go take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. Said we vibing, laying on black sand beaches, thinking of what life teaches. So glad and fall from the deep end. Said we vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind gon' take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. Said we vibing, laying on black sand beaches, thinking of what life teaches. So glad and fall from the deep end. Said we vibing. Even when the days feel low, faith's gonna have that glow. Already moving where they ain't think I go. Never show your hand or fold. Keep that poker face shining. Keep that hope and faith and face the fire. Ain't no trace of hate that you can find. If you say I'm hating, then you lying. Put your hand on the Bible, won't you? Try and say that again. Polygraph it, I'll probably map it. Got an alibi or a friend. Ever seen lightning hit same place twice? Won't say I'm God, but Zeus like. Also the guy with the juice side. Phase Avishai, we cruise. Vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind gon' take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. Said we vibing, laying on black sand beaches, thinking of what life teaches. So glad and fall from the deep end. Said we vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind gon' take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. Said we vibing, laying on black sand beaches, thinking of what life teaches. So glad and fall from the deep end. Said we vibing and thinking about them things my mama told me. Courageous heart, it's pumping hard, got cold feet. All I gotta do is jump now. I'm afraid of heights, does that mean I'm afraid of the top now? Feel vertigo, how to make the place I live or trying to go. But I know what it feel like, how I be in this real life. Can't be complacent or complicit. Life's complicated enough, the destination is us. Why don't you go like we're numb? Vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind gon' take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. Said we vibing, laying on black sand beaches, thinking of what life teaches. So glad and fall from the deep end. Said we vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind gon' take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. Said we vibing, laying on black sand beaches, thinking of what life teaches. So glad and fall from the deep end. Said we vibing.
Yeah, shalom everyone, shalom. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University Precept Mastery. I'm the elder over here with King James Bible University and also with the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel. And today we're going to be looking at another preceptual study. We're going to be finishing it out today because it's based on the abominations of foods, So we need to make sure we have our pencils, paper, and notes ready because we're actually going to be going through the preceptor. And then right after this lesson with the preceptor, I will be sending that over to where that'll be going out to everybody who already have the preceptor, and they'll be getting the notes from that to where I'm going to tell you a way you can do it. You can open it up, and actually it's going to inject itself into your preceptor for you. So I want to welcome everyone here and making sure that each and every one of us is prepared to go through what we need to basically understand, because we have to understand a couple of things based on these eating forbidden foods. See, because you have some people look at it carnally and just believe that it's eating things carnally, but it's never speaking of that because it's always giving us all parables. So we understand parables, we know it's not talking about what you're doing carnally, it's what you're doing spiritually. So just making sure everybody got the time and making sure that everybody have the paper and pencils, because we're going to start looking at this real closer. And what we're going to do, we're going to start over here. We're going to look in, we're going to go over here. We're going to go inside the Bibles. And we're going to start right here in Deuteronomy chapter 14. but we're going to start at verse 3. We're going to start at verse 3. I want to make sure that everybody's ready because we have a lot of information we're going to get. Then we're going to move over to the preceptor, and then we're going to start putting that information in. But we're going to find out a lot of information here that's going to help you out, not just in this study, but it's going to help you throughout all your studies. So I want to make sure that each and every person have your paper, your pencil, and if you're able to where you can have your preceptor open, this is where it's going to be most important. And it tells us this in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 3. It says, "Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing." So we shouldn't eat any abominable thing. And we want to find out what that is because this is an allegory. This is a parable. And I'm going to read this one and I'm going to read the next one, but then we're going to focus in on what's going on. And it tells us in verse 4, it says, "These are the beasts which ye shall eat, the ox, the sheep, the goat, the hart, the roebuck, and the fallow deer, the wild goat, the pargi, the wild ox, and the she-mouse." We're going to find out what all this is. So you're going to see how important it is, why he's saying it this way, and why it's being shaped out that way. Because most people are going to think that this is talking about physically eating these animals. People think it's talking about physically eating these animals, and that's not actually what it's saying. Because we're going to find out more so what this is actually speaking of. Now, understanding eating these foods here, but it says we shall not eat any abominable thing. And this has a spiritual implication when we consider eating. When eating, I want to make sure everybody who's new over here and everything, when we talk about eating, you're talking about learning. Eating is learning. And we have to initialize the knowledge of wisdom. That's the first thing we have to do. So eating is learning, and it's initializing knowledge and wisdom. So in this text is given, we have to list the clean and unclean foods as what it says in Leviticus chapter 11. We're not going to look at it, but we're going to find out exactly what it's talking about. So each category carry significant spiritual weight. Each category going to carry significant spiritual weight. On the physical level, the commandment about foods serves as dietary laws. They serve as dietary laws meant as followers of Christ. Apart from being surrounded by other nations, we are to maintain our physical health and spiritually no matter what. Do everybody understand that? Because we're going to dig into some things. We're going to start finding out a lot of different things. So no matter what our surroundings are, we are to maintain our physical health spiritually, no matter what. Everybody get that? I want to make sure everybody understand what I'm saying. Because we looking at this like we in a class. We're not sitting there acting like we just watching, but you have to be actively participating to make sure we can get this understanding together. So spiritually, the laws can be seen as an intricate self-guideline for moral and spiritual living. So it's warning us against initializing one false doctrine. That's why we should not eat. We should not learn. We should not eat any abominable thing, because we got to initializing false doctrine, ideologies or philosophies that is not in alignment with the Word of God. The forbidden foods. Keep that in mind. Forbidden foods. We're going to be looking at this a lot in detail. Forbidden foods. Then we can understand as they profane and ungodly teachings of followers of Christ, not to consume as spiritual food. We are not to consume forbidden foods, which is spiritual food. We should not consume them. So we shouldn't be learning of this. Same as the spirit of Yahawah, the shepherd of Israel. He instructs as his followers with pure and beneficial of our spiritual well-being. So just as certain foods is deemed unclean, therefore are abominations in the physical realm making certain teachings and beliefs spiritually unclean. So when we going around and we hanging around where things is spiritually unclean, that'll make us unclean because we taken in to those same ideologies. We taken into them same doctrines. We taken into the same thing that makes us spiritually unclean. This is why we have to watch that. This is why it's very important. And it's deemed abominable. So even in this physical realm with this certain thing, and we got to remember Yahawah or Jesus, he's warned us of this. We're going to see this over here in Matthew chapter 16, but we're going to look at verse 12. He's telling us over here, we're going to look at. It says, then understood they how he had bade them not beware of leaven of bread, but of the doctrine. See, it's not, don't get caught up on the physical. Something you can physically touch, you can taste, you can eat. He said, not beware of the leaven of bread. Don't worry about the leaven of the bread and how it rising. Don't worry about that part. But the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Everybody get what I'm saying? I want to make sure you understand. He's not worried about the leaven of the bread of rising using leaven, but he's using that as a metaphor, as an allegory, as a parable, the way you can understand when you eating bread, it can rise. But he's telling you not that. Don't look at that part. I'm talking about what can rise is the doctrines, the teachings, the learning of Pharisees, the learnings of Sadducees. That's what gets you in trouble. This is where this comes out at. This is why I say it's very important to where we understand what's getting ready to happen. So we got to beware of leaven of Pharisees, leaven of doctrines, leavens of the spiritual food that they try to put out. That's what we watch for. This is spiritual food that's given by the Pharisees and by the Sadducees, essentially warning them against initializing false and corrupt teachings. So the act of eating, one second. So the act of eating, we have to know these are forbidden spiritual foods that can lead us away from the path of righteousness as a result of spiritual malnourishment and poisoning of the spirit, such as a choice not merely just to affect the personal or spiritual health, but it helps the ramifications in its entire community of followers of Christ. So one corrupt individual, one individual can act as leaven. Everybody following what I'm saying? One individual can act as leaven. This is why many times when people see me in the back or they see things and then we see something that goes uneasy real quick. That's why I'm real quick to try to take that out, because I don't want no leaven there. I don't want no leaven there, because one individual can leaven the entire lump. One individual. Everybody follow what I'm saying? One individual can leaven the whole lump. Let's look at that in Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. It tells us the same thing when we look over here. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 9, it says, a little leaven the whole lump. One individual can sit there and start telling you about doctrines, telling you about things they dislike, all kind of things, and what this man is talking about, what this is doing. They can take that one piece and they can level the entire congregation, because they're going to go around and they're going to keep talking and everything else. This is where the problem is. So this resonates as a metaphor that runs deep. It challenges us to be discerning, not just what we consume physically, but it's more critical that we take to our minds and what we have to do with our spirits. It's the guidance of the Word of God. It acts as a safeguard. So a dietary law for the soul, if you will, help to maintain your purity in the community and keep, as the followers of Christ, aligning with the will of Yahawah, the Spirit of God, and then we can see how it ganders the scheme of our spiritual lives. That's what it catches us with. As eating, the same thing with the eating of forbidden foods is not a trivial matter. When you're eating forbidden foods, but it's a serious spiritual transgression that can rupture one connection with God, because you're doing it physically. You're doing that physically. So there with the Creator, the laws are given that's arbitrary restrictions, but as loving guidelines from the Father who wishes his children to remain holy, undefiled, both in body and in spirit. Everybody follow what I'm saying? He wants you to be both so you can understand it physically as well as spiritually. He wants you to see how you can connect to both. Most people go out and they only learn one side of this. They only learn what's physical. They know they miss everything spiritual. Everybody with me? So when we go into these details, when we look at this here, we're going to go back up here. We're going to go back up. We're going to read, and then we're going to come down. And then we're going to start breaking some things down. Now let's go back up, and we're going to go back to Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 3. We're going to go up, and we're going to read it down to verse 6. But we're going to start tearing everything down to where we can get all this together. It says, thou shalt not eat, so we shall not learn of any abominable thing. But he's telling you, these are the beasts which ye shall learn of. So these are the ones which we should learn of. It says the ox, the sheep, the goat, the hart, the roebuck, the fallow deer, the wild goat, the pargi, the wild ox, and the she-mouse. Now you're going to see more so. We're going to take this 6, and then we're going to start breaking everything down. It says, of every beast that parteth the hoof, and cleaveth the cleft into the 2 claws, and cheweth the cud among the beasts, that ye shall learn of. That's the one you learn of. So we got to understand what these is. We got to mainly understand what he's talking about to where we can physically see what he's talking about physically, because we know we're going to see what these animals are, but then we can learn spiritually what he's talking about. So specific animals for the children of Israel, which they can eat, which we can learn from, are listed. These are the beasts which we should learn of, the ox, the sheep, and all what he's saying there. So spiritually, each one of these animals symbolizes various forms of wisdom, various forms of teaching, various forms of doctrine they deem clean, beneficial for the followers of Christ. Everybody got that? This is what is beneficial for followers of Christ. Everybody understand that? We're going to be going through this, and we want to make sure everybody understand what I'm saying. So each one of these is going to tell us what we need to know. Each one is going to tell us exactly what we need to know. So the ox, we want to look at the ox. And everybody, I want you to write this down. I want you to write down the ox. I want you to put down a piece of paper, just like I said. When you come over here, we don't come over here trying to just listen and enjoying what we're hearing. We want to put in work because we need to know what's required of us to get back to the kingdom of God. So I want you to write down ox, the ox. Just put it in there. Then I want you to put a equal sign. A ox is in a position of a pastoral societies. So the ox is seen as a pastoral society. So the ox is a symbol of service, sacrifice, strength. Spiritually, it signifies the teachings that emphasize service and sacrifice for the greater good, the alignment with Yahawah instruction. So the ox symbolizes doctrines that focuses on the importance of diligent work. Keep this in mind, of diligent work in the spiritual field. It's in a spiritual field, and he's doing diligent work. So it's invoking the character, the sentiment of the moral nature. Actually, it's the same thing what Paul said. I'm gonna show you something what Paul said. Don't worry, we're gonna put all this in the Preceptor. So we're gonna come back and do it. So we're gonna look at 1 Corinthians. We're gonna look at chapter 3. We're gonna look at verse 6. And you'll see what he says right here. I'm gonna take out verse 7. I don't need 7. But Paul tells you, he said, I have planted Apollos, watered. He done watered Apollos, but God gives the increase. So he left Apollos there as an ox. But God, as he's sitting there plowing, he's letting you know right up front that God gives the increase. God gives the increase. So we have to understand that. This is what we have to pay attention to. We have to look at also the sheep. The sheep. I want you to put sheep. I want you to put equal. Sheep, equal. I want to make sure everybody get that down. I want you to put down sheep and equal, and then we're going to keep moving. because I'm not going to try to move too fast, but I want us to all understand exactly what we're talking about. So sheep a sheep is associated with obedience, being the flock of God. It has everything to do with obedience, spiritually learning from the sheep how to be obedient, how you be obedient, part of the flock. It represents the internalization of teachings that stress the obedience of submission to the will of God. This is why I came over to Psalms 23, because you're going to see how this is. And you see what he says, the Lord is my shepherd. So you're going to be obedient to this shepherd. When men telling you they're shepherds, that's not the truth. So you're going to, if they shepherding you, then you basically setting yourself up to go to hell. Because the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pasture. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Who is with me? The shepherd of Israel. He's telling you right there, thou art, and his perfection and beauty is with him. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the who? The Lord, the Lord, the Lord, forever. Not in some other man's house. Everybody get that? That's the point. That's the focus. That's why you got to look at the sheep. The sheep is showing us how we need to be humble. We need to be obedient to the word of God. We need to be obedient to the voice of God. We need to be obedient because he is our shepherd. That's the point. That's the point of this. So we want to make sure we understand that the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. You shall not want any other leader or any other thing that's going to run you some other kind of way. It makes no sense. We have the goat. See, it says in the goat. We got to look at this goat. This goat, it talks about quite a bit. But as we look at this goat, we want to understand why do we can learn from the goat. We can learn from the goat. And we can. And we're going to look at that one also. Because the goat, and many times the goat is associated, pay attention to what I'm saying here, the goat is associated with rebellion. A goat is associated with rebellion. A goat also is an animal of sacrifice. Spiritually, this signifies teachings that stress the necessity of personal sacrifice or self-mortification, self-denial, or self-discipline. So one has to maintain relationship with God, aligning the same thing why I brought you over to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 22, it tells us, and it's clear. It says, I almost in all things are by the law purged with blood. Purged with blood. We're going to learn a few things here because we're going to tear down a few things over here. And it says, without shedding of blood is no remission. We got to find out what that's saying, because most people have mixed this up. A lot of people have mixed this up. This is a very misunderstood verse on what it's saying, because it's saying the law purged with blood, without shedding of blood is no remission. Now we have some keywords, spiritual keywords, but we also have some foundational spiritual words that we're going to use. So this is why I said we're going to learn a few things here to where we can get the understanding, and why I didn't want to run through it last week, because we want to take the time to do it. So we have to look at, I want you to write down shedding. Shedding. I want you to write that down. Shedding. Let me know shedding. We want to have that down. Shedding. Now, it has a few different meanings, but we're only going to learn a couple of them today. We're going to learn 2 of them today, but they have about 5 or 6 different meanings to this. But the thing is, it's very clear. So shedding, in this context, what it's telling us is talking about remembering or recalling. It has a few others, as I said, but it emphasizes the necessary to continual acknowledgement of understanding the spiritual principles laid down by God the Father. That's what y'all want to know. So this aligns well with the understanding of shedding blood, shedding a lifestyle as mentioned here in Hebrews. serves as a sacred cleansing, a function leading to remissions of sin. So the same thing as the Old Testament is filled with reminders of sacrifices designed to recall the conventional relationship with God that seeks to seek atonement, to establish righteousness. All aligns with the theme of remembrance, keeping the covenant and the laws forever present in the minds and in our deeds. So the act of shedding blood for sacrifices, we shedding a lifestyle for sacrifices that's seen in a spiritual side on remembering and recalling the principles of the laws of God is critical, important to atonement for the purity. So as we see this, we're reading to ensure that followers of Christ do not stray from the path, that we are continually reminded through these practices of their duties and responsibilities under the covenant with Yahawah, the shepherd of Israel. So we can look at something to where we can find out something. Actually, I'm gonna grab this one here. Keep this one in mind in Romans. In Romans chapter 8, and why I'm saying that, well, we got to do it. It's already highlighted. It says, for what the law could not do. Actually, we don't want that. We want 8:13. That's the one I actually want. This one. This is the one I actually want. So Romans 8:13, it says, for if we live after the flesh, ye shall die. So if you live in according to the flesh, the physical things you can feel, the touch, smell. If you live after that, you live after physical bread, you are going to die. I don't care how we look at this. If you're going to live after what you see, physical fish, physical bread, you are going to die. This is why so many people got doctrines so screwed up. Because they're living at the physical things. They're doing physical things. And he's a spiritual God. He's showing you similitudes on what we should be doing, but people doing physical things thinking this is what he's requiring of each and every one of us. And that's not the truth. That is nowhere close to the truth. We have to understand what he wants us to do spiritually is what we have to do. Spiritually is what we have to do. Everybody understand what I'm saying? We have to do things spiritually, not physically. We have to understand the difference between the two. It's very important. It's highly important. Let's look at this another way. We want to look at this another way. So with this self-mortification, it's the same. So mortifying the deeds of fleshly body. So as he said, it says, but providing ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, meaning mortifying the deeds of the flesh, and you don't do those, ye should live. So you can see many people doing physical things and thinking they're doing these physical things and they're going to live. And that's not the truth. Because you're doing deeds of the body. That don't have nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with anything. So the same thing as we looking up here, we talking about the heart and the roebuck. We're going to find out a lot about this. Because the heart right here, we're going to highlight this right here. The heart is talking about a male deer. Now we're looking at the roebuck, and you're looking at a fellow deer. Now the fellow deer is talking about a young deer of a few days. That's all he's talking about. But you're going to see a deer of a few days, he has to still be very diligent on what's going on because his very life depends on following the mother. Let's look at something in 1 Peter. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it tells us a lot more about this. It says, be sober, be vigilant. Be sober, be vigilant. Because your adversary, the devil, as a comparing a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. So if you stray, so if that young deer strays, you got this roaring lion, these wolves, is waiting to get a hold to her. And they'll rip them away. Because as soon as those deer see something not cool, they take off. So this is representing doctrines. You have to be agile, like these alert animals. Representing doctrine, it requires a spiritual agility in this alertness, spiritually eating from that can signify learning from teachings that focuses on discernment and being vigilant, as is indicated. Be sober, be vigilant, because that adversary, he's out there. And if you're not sitting there and you only have a few days old, you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's coming, and you will actually get devoured. That's why many young fellow deers, they'll walk off from the parent, and then all of a sudden, boom. They don't know what danger is. They don't know what they're only a few days old. They don't know that this wolf, this lion, this whatever he's out there, they don't know it's out there to kill, steal, and destroy. But if you stay close to the mother, they can learn these things. That's the important. We have the wild goat and the pargi. We have the wild goat and the pargi. In the pargi, this is actually talking about a white rump deer. You'll see deer with the rump of the back of them is all white. That's what that's talking about. It's talking about a white rumped deer. And let's look at something. We're going to go over here to Galatians, and we're going to look at something more. We're going to go to Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. And he's telling us kind of the same thing. Stand fast, therefore, the liberty wherewith Christ have made us free. This anointed way have made us free, not to be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Not to be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. This is what's important. We don't want to get back entangled, going back down these weird streets, going back down these back alleys, going back down these weird roads. We want to take that anointed path that he has laid out for each and every one of us. That's the important part we need to be doing. We need to make sure we paying attention to what's going on, paying attention, learning, understanding what's going on. That's the most important thing. We have the same thing with the wild ox. The wild ox. That's what he's talking about. A wild ox. Now this wild ox, you can see them. Now most people don't know what a wild ox is, but I'm going to explain to what they are. Because here, when we're looking at them here in America, this is talking about bison or a wenslet. Talking about bison or wenslet. But in Africa and in Jerusalem, we're talking about African buffaloes. We're talking about forests. They call them also forest buffaloes. You can actually see these things. If you was in the animal kingdom and all this, you actually know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's what these are. That's what these are. And then we have the shemos. We have that one there. This is talking about a gazelle. That's all that's talking about. Nothing more, nothing less. The shemos is talking about a gazelle. What you be seeing with them, how they run it. Beautiful running animals. But that's what that's talking about. And we have to understand what that means. But these things is robust. These are sturdy animals. They symbolize in strength and resilience. Spiritually, they represent teaching that's fortifying the inner persons against hardship. That's actually reflective. The same thing when you see in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 10. You're going to see the same thing here in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Let me take this part out. Let me take this part out and put this in. It says, finally, my brother, being strong, exactly. You have to be strong like this wild ox, this shemos. You have to be strong like that. This is what's important. We have to be robust, symbolizing the strength and the resilience of what we're doing. Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord. Be strong in the Lord, in the Creator, in the power of his might. We have to be just like that animal. Understanding these animals and their associate with the teachings and the diverse forms of spiritual nourishment equips the followers of Christ for varied challenges of modern life. So they represent various teachings. They represent various doctrines. They represent various spiritual disciplines in followers of Christ. So that we can consume them spiritually and internalizing to grow. to understand maturity and a closeness with the God the Father. He's not sitting there telling you, go eat them. He's telling you can learn from them. But we'll sit there and we eat them physically. Same as he told us in Leviticus. He tell you what you can eat and what you can't eat, but he's telling you what you can learn from and what you not to learn from. They don't say it don't nothing in there telling you what you can eat. Technically, when you want to get real technical with it, we shouldn't even be eating nothing of flesh. Absolutely nothing. Those was used for spiritual understanding. So we should not be eating flesh whatsoever. They was done to learn from, but we chose to eat them. If you ever look at you look at a lion, you look at a wolf, you look at a leopard, you look at a coyote, you can look at all these animals, you'll see they chew up and down. They chew up and down. They up and down chewing. That's it. Because it's made to rip meat. That's all they made for, to rip and eat meat. Now with us, you'll see us, we chew more like a cow, like a goat, like a lamb. Our jaws will rotate as we eat. When you eat, you don't eat straight up and down. You do not eat straight up. You don't up and down. Your jaw is going to rotate. That's what we're going to do. We're just like grazing. We're going to rotate. So the same thing you hear me talk about even when I'm in the back. I talk about how much I like to eat tuna, this and that. But physically, I should not be eating that. I'm being just very upfront with you. Physically, I should be eating nothing but vegetables and things like that. That's what we used to be doing. That's what we were made for. We wasn't made to eat meat at all. That was never done. But we had taken those things, but once we learn that, we should learn how to come off of it. So understanding these animals, they're associated and they diverse from the spiritual forms of nourishment, is equipped the followers of Christ to go through these various challenges in modern life. So they represent the various teachings, the doctrines, the spiritual discipline. So when we consume, when we internalize to grow, to understand the maturity and closeness with God the Father, that's the point. So these clean animals, each in its unique characteristic, can be likened unto a Mareda ways, which is the word of God. Spiritual food manifests itself in our lives. So they aim to walk harmoniously with the principles, the actual principles, the principles of Yahawah, our shepherd of Israel, to seek the teachings to align with his pure, imperfect will. Align with his pure, imperfect will. But you're going to have some people going to always seek. They're going to always seek to pervert. They're going to try to pervert what is justice. So we got to pay attention to this. We got to pay attention, and we're going to come back. And then I'm going to go through a lot of this, and then we're going to come back and put it all in the precept if you guys don't mind. But we want to get through a lot of this meat to understand exactly what's going on. So I want you guys to stay with me, and then we're going to go over to the precept, and we're going to start putting all this stuff in. And so some people are pervert justice, and this is what happens. This is talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So let's look at something in Proverbs. Proverbs looking at 17:15. Pay real close attention on what's going to happen, because this is very important. It says, he that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just. Understand how he's saying this. He that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just. This is very important. You got people who would justify wickedness. You got people who would justify people who are wicked. That don't make any sense. You shouldn't justify them at all. And you condemneth the just. Even they both are abominations to the Lord, to the Spirit of God. They are abominations. He, the same person that would justify a wicked person and they condemn a just person, those both, everything that they did is an abomination to God. That's a total 100% abominations. This is why a lot of people have a problem with a lot of things. Because they'll sit there and they'll try to justify your brother, your sister, your friends, and you'll condemn justice. That makes no sense. that makes absolutely no sense. You shouldn't be trying to, oh, I'm going to put this down, but I'm going to agree with this, but I'm not going to agree with that. But we do it. That's perverting justice. That's perverting justice. So when you perverting justice, and the one with JEHOVAH, we look at this, so it's described that he's justifying something and he's condemning another one. So these virtues and these implications of this verse is commencing from a temporal standpoint before escalating into a spiritual dimension is what's going to happen. So from the worldly perspective, this proverb underscores the fundamental tenets of fair governance in the theory of philosophy of law. That's why we had the biggest problem in America, because they will justify wickedness, but they'll condemn justice, and they'll do it under the fundamental of fair governance based on a theory or philosophy. This is what they do here. We can't change it. We sit there, you could talk about it all you want to. So essentially it denounces the acts that subvert the course of justice. Unjustly, we find innocent for the guilty. We find innocence for the guilty. And we find unjustice punishment for the innocent. We do it like clockwork. We do this like clockwork and don't think nothing about it. So in this current society, we observe numerous instances where justice is distorted, false convictions or suppressions of evidence, even in the miscarriages of justice due to society and economic inequalities. Inequalities they do. So we need to evaluate the understanding of these spiritual realms, because God the Father, our Creator, He's the ultimate standard for justice. For justice is what we hold him to. We have to pay attention to how He's doing this. Let's look at something in Genesis chapter 18, verse 25. We're gonna find out something here and understand what it's saying. It says, "That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked." See, this is something that Abraham was talking to the Spirit of God about. He says, "In that the righteous should be as the wicked, that be far from thee, shall not judge, shall not the teacher of all the earth do right?" And that's why this Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I'll spare all the place for their sakes. He's telling you this. This is what I'm saying. This is what's so important. Because some people will sit there and ask the same question. See, because when the real justice come, they're going to say, wait a minute, you're going to slay the righteous with them? He's telling you no. I'm not going to do that. So we got to evaluate that. Let's look at something, take it a little bit closer. In Psalms, looking at 19:9, it says, fear the Lord, fear the Lord. Fear the Spirit of God is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord, the judgments of the Spirit of God are true and righteous together, all together. They're true and righteous all together. So when humans, us, man, we pervert justice, we are not merely committing acts against fellow men, but we're standing in the direct opposition of the character of the will of God. The act to become, and what we become is an abomination, foul, a distortation, or the spiritual and moral things that God set and is to test him. Because we're willing to justify wickedness. That's what we do. We won't think twice about it. That's why it's important. Justice in the Bible is not a standalone understanding or concept, but it's deeply integrated in the conventional relationship between God and his people. Let me go somewhere real quick with this. Let me look at something. And we'll see this in Amos 5:24. But I want to do something because we want to understand more things that's happening here, because it's so important when we're looking at this. We need to let this flow like a river. It says, but let justice run down as water. Let justice run down as water, and righteousness as comparing a mighty stream. That's what should be happening. Followers of Christ, Jews, because that's all I'm saying. A follower of Christ don't mean nothing but a Jew. The followers of Christ, as his servants and feeders of God's knowledge and understanding, have critical roles in ensuring that these principles are upheld, both their personal lives and in their communities. Both in their personal lives and in their communities. That's important. So this seriousness of perverting justice is not merely an earthly matter, but it also possesses a cosmic sacrifice, and is signified by it's against the nature of Yahawah. It's against that nature. Let me bring that a little bit closer. Let's look at something. We'll bring it a little bit closer to where we can see what I'm talking about. In Psalms chapter 11, verse 7. To bring it just a little bit closer. For righteousness in Psalms 11:7, for Psalms 11:7, for righteousness, for the righteous Lord, for the righteous Spirit of God, for the righteous Jehovah loveth righteousness. His countenance doeth remember the upright. That's a serious statement. This serves as a tarnish upon the law that establishes his people. Those who ever in doing and walk in the path, and must excuse all forms, not some, all forms of injustice. For to uphold what is abominable to the Lord is alienating oneself. You'll be alienating yourself from the divine fellowship and guidance with God. All you doing, you perverting justice, you upholding it. So this serves as an intense affront where both with God, the temporal, the eternal laws, is not merely a legal disciplinary thing, but a moral and spiritual deviation to detour from the path of righteousness that God wishes for the followers of Christ to tread upon. This is why we had a problem. Because a lot of us choose to always go the other way. But there's various forms, various phrases, various metaphors describes as acts as injustice, revealing the complex nature, demonstrating it's an offense to God. It's an abomination to God. Let's look at some of them. Everybody got your pencils ready, because we're going to write down a few more things. I want you to make sure you have it as we write them down. I want to make sure you have it as we write them down. So I want to make sure you have it. And we're going to write those down. So just make sure everybody got your paper and your pencil ready, because we got to make sure we write our stuff down to where we can go back and look at it, understand what we need to be doing, because it's important. So one of them is the same thing. Is we're going to look at these all in sequence, and we're going to go back to them. And don't worry, same thing like I said. We're going to go back. We're going to put them in the precept. That I promise you. So one of them is bearing false witness. Bearing false witness. You perverting justice. You bearing false witness. And you'll see that happens quite a bit. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 16, it tells you, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. These are things according to the flesh, meaning you doing things of flesh. Of flesh. Because I'm going to put this here just so we'll know it. Just so we'll know it. Even people who's new here. Because that's what I'm saying, the things of the flesh. Because it tells you in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9, it says, knowing that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless, the disobedient, for the ungodly, for the sinner, for the unholy, the profane, murders, the father, murders, the mother, for manslayers, for whoremongers, of them that defile themselves with mankind, man-stealers, liars, perjured persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine. And this is what this is against. It's against this because he's telling you something you don't not to do. Because this is not the law. This is the law of flesh. We'll deal with this again later on what the law of the Spirit is. People who's here know what it is. But this is what the point is. So when we bear false witness according to flesh, and this is the ninth commandment. That's the crazy part. To manipulate a judgment. To manipulate a judgment. You got bribery. Bribery. You see this here in Exodus chapter 23, verse 8. See the same thing. Bribery. This is why you have any building, any church, any man, any woman that's in there saying they teaching the word of God, they lying to you. But people still go in there. This is why I say so many people deserve to go to hell when we come to that confrontation and we got to confront it. Many of us going to rightfully so go to the lake of fire. Rightfully so. Because no matter what, you thought you can massage it and do it around another way. And you deservingly so should go to hell. See, people sit there, well, I don't know why he says it that way. No, because this is what we do. We good at doing this. We good at, oh, well, I can change this around. I can do it. And he's cool with this. You don't know what he's cool with. Now you're trying to think for God. He says, thou shalt not take no gift. For the gift blindeth the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. So as you're giving this man money, you're giving him these things to where he'll sit there, he's going to manipulate. He's going to take those gifts and then it influence his judgment unjustly. That's what's going to happen. It's going to influence him unjustly. So now he know that you're doing something that's wrong, but you didn't give him this money, these things, so you're going to pervert that. You're going to sit there, it's not bad. Either you're going to soften it or you're not going to speak on it. You're going to soften it or you're not going to speak on it. Why? That's what we do. That's what we do. I'm telling you, we do it like clockwork. This is things we cannot get around, but we do them like clockwork. And we think nothing about it. And we got to get out of that. But guess what? That's why I say so many of us deserve to go to hell. It's unreal. A ton of us need to go to hell. Because no matter what, even here, we're going to continually sin. Knowing they sin. Thinking we're going to get away with it. Let's look at something. In Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 17. It says, ye shall not respect persons in judgment. You don't respect nobody. In this mother, father, brother, husband, wife, cousin, friend, I don't care who they are. You shall not respect persons in judgment. In doctrine, you don't respect nobody. Not over to God's word. That's crazy. When you sitting there and you scared to sit there to speak, when someone will sit there and talk about God and you know they're not talking about God and you're not going to check them, okay, you respecting that person and you deserve to go to hell. You're not willing to stand up for the word of God. You willing to sit there to go to hell because you want to respect this person. Well, I want to show a little respect to them. Hell, you don't respect that person. That's why I tell many people, don't come to me with some doctrine and don't think I'm not going to tell you about it. Don't come to me trying to sit there and talk Bible and I'm going to make you pull the Bible out. Because I'm not going to respect you. I don't care if you're 10. I don't care if you're 100. I'm not going to respect you in judgment. In doctrines and teaching of the Bible, you are not going to get my respect. Period. The only thing going to get my respect is this book. Nothing else. He's old. I can care less how old he is. I'm not going to respect him. If he's teaching the false doctrine, he's teaching the false doctrine. But ye should hear the small as well as the great. You should not be afraid of the face of the man, for the judgment is God's. The judgment is his. And the cause that is too hard for you, bring it unto me and I hear it. That's what he's saying. You bring it to somebody who's strong. I hear it. Because I'm not going to bow down to you. Please don't expect me to respect you. Don't expect that. Because I'm not going to. This is why people have a problem, and then some people take that as arrogance, and it's not arrogance. What you're doing is you're not respecting them based on a false doctrine that they try to push. I'm not going to respect them on that. And I know it's a lie, and I'm going to sit there like, yeah, that's cool. No, that's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. This is why it's so important. Why the same thing, we all say it. What should you learn from? Because you got some people going to respect people. I'm not respecting nobody. When it comes to this, I don't respect nobody. The only thing I respect is this book. What's in this book, I respect. People say, well, I do. I can care less what you do. And Ezekiel, looking at 22:7, same thing. Ezekiel 22:7. Because some will do it this way. Some going to do it by oppression. You got to understand how people are going to pervert doctrines and teachings. They're going to do it in a certain way, so they'll do it through oppression. It says, in thee have I set light by father and mother in the midst of thee. Have they dealt by oppression with the stranger. In thee have they vexed the fatherless and the widow. This is what people do. You'll oppress them. You'll do these things. They won't think nothing about it. Thinking it's cool. Well, I can put them down. No. I'm not going to respect you. Where people want to sit there and they want to talk about God. They just want to talk about God, but they don't want to go through the Word of God. They want to talk about it, but they don't want to go through the words of God. Because they want to tell you another way to make themselves look good. Why? Because they're going to twist doctrine. They're going to twist it. Actually, you'll see this. Actually, let's go over here to Exodus 23 and verse 6. We're going to go here. In Exodus 23:6, same thing we was talking about. It says, thou shalt not rest. You shall not wrestle the doctrines and teaching of the poor in his cause. Don't deliberately distorting or undermining fair judgment. Don't do that. See, when you're looking at this, and people will subvert justice, is aligned with teaching, and you see various legal systems around the world where power or of influence by money, political pressure, has been used to manipulate outcomes. I want you to think about what I'm saying. They had used influence, power, and money for political pressure to influence and manipulate outcomes. When you considering even where you get into these powerful these corporations, accusing these where they do all this environmental damage, such as pollution in your local water supplies, your local residents who have suffered health problems and lost even livelihood, decided to take legal action against the corporation, but still the corporation has significant influence of resources at their disposal because they're very rich. Think about that. They're very rich. They have money. So what they'll do, they'll just influence. Sometimes shed a few dollars towards them. So rather than facing challenges in evidence of honesty, they employ a series of underhanded tactics. They hire legal experts to create confusion. They'll get these experts and they'll create confusion about scientific evidence. Famous they do this. They'll have scientific evidence. They'll use public relations. They'll use campaigns to sway public opinion unfairly. Oh, well, I seen it on the news, so it got to be true. It got to be true. I'd seen it on the news. It's true. Really. It's interesting. These exerts pressures, political figures, interface with this judicial process. So even when you're dealing with these scenarios of residents, you find these legitimate grievances that's drowned out by false noise, the complexity to manipulate and introduce by the corporations. And it's by their defense. So the regulations, you might feel political or financial pressure by the corporation, and this is deliberate obfuscation. Obfuscation, or you can also see it, because that's what they're going to use. They're going to use a legal term called obfuscation. But legally, what it's talking about, they're going to skirt things to make it unclear. That's all that means legally. They're going to make things obscure to make it unclear for evidence. So it's going to result to the justice where truth is obscured. You can't tell. So the guilty party escapes based on the accountability. You can't get them on it because it's too, what you hear people even say, the waters is too muddied. So we have wrongdoing been left out and had to be redressed. So judgment has been twisted. Not an honest weighing in evidence of the law, and it's a deliberate distortion undermining the process. So this example is underscores the importance of integrity, transparency. By adhering to the principles of justice, followers of Christ, we must realize the value of fair judgment and the grave danger of subverting this legal system that reflects on righteousness and fairness, the same as the Creator. That's why this is important. Yahawah, even in the complex, in this imperfect world, the principles, when you're looking at Exodus chapter 23, verse 8, it says, thou shalt not rest. You shall not wrestle with judgment of the poor in his cause. It shows a warning against the temptations of distorting, undermining fair judgment. Think about that. I'm talking about this. We do this like clockwork. It's so important. So important. Another one, what we love to do is unrighteous decrees. We love to do unrighteous decrees. Let's look at this. We're gonna pull in this, and we're gonna find this also in Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. I want to take you there. Isaiah 10, 1. And we're gonna look at this. So it says, woe. Woe. In meaning woe, people look at it a different way, but I don't know why they use it that way. But woe is a warning. A warning unto them. A warning unto them that decree unrighteous decrees. A warning unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, in that right grievous which they have prescribed. Creating and enforcing laws that are contrary to God's righteousness. Meaning you're lying. You're creating laws to create lies. Sound like America, don't it? Sound just like America. This is what we do. We're good at doing this. We're good at doing this. We don't think nothing about it. We like to put up false balances. We like to lie. We like to lie about this. This is it. We can't get around it. So we do these false balances. Wicked scales. Let's build on this. We're going to go over here to Hosea. Let's go to Hosea. We're going to look at something. Hosea chapter 12, looking at verse 7. we good at doing this. It says, he is a merchant. The balances of deceit are in his power. The balances of deceit is in his power. He loveth to oppress. False balances. Have you ever went somewhere and you bought something by the pound? And they can tilt off that balance to where you'll be getting less and paying more for less. Have you ever went to a store where they did that? Where the balance scale is not right? Had that ever happened to you? These false balances. It happens. And it's in their power. This is why it cracks me up. People will go to Vegas and they'll spend thousands. I get people that might go spend a couple of hundred. You might get $1 out of me. That's about it. But you'll see people spend thousands and thousands of dollars thinking they're going to get Vegas. And they don't know that Vegas have false balances. They're not going to go broke. Don't ever think you're going to break Vegas. They are not. They got false balances there on purpose. They're going to let 1 or 2 people win to where you can hear the bell ring and people acting crazy. And then you're going to pump you up to make you drop more money in the machines or put more money on the gambling table. The false balances is already set in place. And then you got to sit there. If they don't do it that way, they're going to do it with violence. We're going to see that one also. Let's look at this one also. In Psalms 11:5, we'll see the same thing. In Psalms 11:5, it tells you. It says, the Lord, the Spirit of God, triumphs the righteous, but the wicked in him that loveth violence, his soul hateth. So you got people who love violence. He hates them. He's telling you right there, in him that loveth violence, his soul hateth. Meaning the Spirit of God hate that. He hates you if that's what you love, violence. He hates you. You can sit there and say whatever you want to say, flip it around however you want to flip it around. He's telling you right up front, he can't stand your butt. He don't like robbery either. We're going to look at that one also. So when we look at these things, we're going to understand exactly what's going on. In Isaiah chapter 10, looking at verse 2, the same thing. Because this is what we do. All these doctrines, see, and all these are doctrines. Were you doing the doctrines of false balances? And you'll teach your children this. But in Isaiah chapter 10, looking at verse 11, it says, to turn aside the needy from judgment, from doctrine and teaching, and take away the right from the poor of my people. The widow may be their prey, that they may rob the fatherless. Why? What possesses people to do this? Have you ever seen where you seen people, or you go into a church? The best place you can go because they good at doing it. You go into a church, and the preacher will sit there and he'll ask. I've seen them where they ask for 1,000. I've seen them ask for 10,000. I've seen them ask for hundreds. I've seen them ask for hundreds more than anything. They'll say, you give everybody who have $100 bill or write a check for $100 and write it out to God. But he's telling you to write it out to that church because God don't have a bank here. So you're going to write it out to the church to him to take care of what the bill he want to talk, but he just ain't telling you. He's doing a false balance. And he'll say, and if God don't give it back to you in the next week or two, you come back and I give it back to you 100-fold. Have you ever had that done to you? Seen it. Every time they say that, I shut my pocket, close it tight. Because I knew it was a lie. But they would sit there and tell you that in a heartbeat. Give this, and if God don't give it back to you, you come back and we'll give it to you 100-fold. They already know people ain't going to come back to them. That has everything to do with fraud. Everything. Everything to do with fraud. Because they sitting there, they telling you a bold-faced lie, and they don't care. In Leviticus chapter 19, looking at verse 13, we're gonna see the same thing. You see how it just lines right up. It says, "Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired, you should not abide with thee all night until morning." Some of us love to do this. Some of us love to do this. And do what? Some of us love to sit there, and you can see somebody who came did some work for you, and they need the money that day. You told them you were going to give it to them that day, but you were so caught up into your world, you decide, no, come by tomorrow. I'll get it for you tomorrow. They can't do anything because you done set them up. Come by tomorrow, and I'll give it to you tomorrow. You're going to put them at your beck and call. You should burn in hell. I hope people like you burn in hell. Because you're doing it because you want to exercise your power over that person. You say, what kind of preacher is this? A preacher that don't like people who be just being shady. Because you have somebody who will sit there and have worked, and you told them to do this work for you, and they go out there and they do all this work for you, and you said, well, I'm going to give it to you. As soon as you finish it, they finish it. You will no, I won't tell you what, come by tomorrow and I can pay you tomorrow. Why? You want to watch a football game. You want to watch a baseball. You want to watch a basketball game. You want to watch something else. So you're going to make this person, you don't know what this person made sure that it was done because they needed that money that day. People like that, and whoever they are, if you hear, I hope you burn in hell because you do that on purpose. You do things like that on purpose because you sit there and you feel you have the upper hand on that person. That's wrong. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages that he is hired, and not abide thee all night. Don't keep it. If he finish, pay him for it. Don't hold it. This is what we good at doing this. No, I ain't gonna give it to him today. No, I give it to him tomorrow. They'll get the money when I give it to them. I hope you burn in hell. I hope you burn in hell. You don't know they had money. They might have been looking for the money to take care of their kids. The kids might have needed that money to eat tonight. He might was working to make sure he can pay a bill, and then the next day he had to pay more for the bill because it's a late fee on it. You don't know why he sitting there. He need the money, but you feel I want to watch this game, so I'm not going to get him this money. I give it to him tomorrow. I wish you burn in hell. You should not have did that person. That person had to come work for you, and that's how you repay them. And then thinking, oh yeah, he'd be happy as a lark. He should be happy as I don't know what that I paid him today. Really? This is what we do. So when we understand things like this is why it takes so much time. And then we get to the other one. We real quick to shed innocent blood. We good at doing these things. See, all this has to do with what we have learned by eating, and we have eaten so much leaven to where now it clouds our judgment. It clouds that. Let's look at something in Proverbs chapter 6, verse 17. Proverbs 6:17. Exactly what we're talking about. A proud look, a lying tongue. I'll give it to you. As soon as you finish, I'm going to pay you as soon as you're finished. A lying tongue and power that sheds innocent blood. Powers that shed innocent blood. Condemning the innocent through false judgment. Finish that up. As soon as you finish up, dude, I'm going to pay you right there on the spot. Hey, sir, I'm done. Oh, man, I can't go right now. Come by in the morning. I wish you burn in hell. I don't care who they are. You can be doing a neighbor. You can be doing a person of another nation. You make that person have to wait. You don't know why that person did what they did for you to make sure they had to feed family or something. But on your own personal reasons, you decide you don't want to pay that person. You should burn in hell. You should burn directly in hell. Forever. Because you're a deceitful person. You got the same one where you like the scoring judgment. We're going to see something else. We're going to look at this in Proverbs chapter 19. Looking at 19:28. Because this is all what it gets into. And see, when we go put this in the precept, it ain't going to look good. The same thing it says, the ungodly witness scorneth judgment. The ungodly witness scorneth doctrines and teachings. In the mouth of the wicked devoureth iniquity. You eat iniquity like it's candy. Eating it up like it's candy. We good at doing this. This is what we're good at doing. We'll do that, or we're going to cast away judgment. One of the two. We're going to do that. Actually, I'm going to tell you what, let me put this with it. I want to put something with this. We're going to go to Amos, chapter 5, verse 7. I want to put something with this. I got to put it with it. Have to. It says, ye who turn judgment into wormwood and leave us off righteousness in the earth. Yeah, this is what we do. This is what we do. People say, and we got some people, I see them do. No, stop saying what you see them do. Look at what you do. Stop looking at what other people, look at what you do. Because it goes right back to it. We can't get around a lot of this because this is what we into. Turning aside the needy from judgment and take away from the poor the righteous poor in my people. And that's Isaiah chapter 10, verse 2. Why? Because we judge things unjustly. This is what we're good at doing. We do things unjustly. Why? Because this is what we love doing this. This is what we was taught, and we practice it continually. In Psalms 82, we'll see something. Psalms 82, we're going to look at verse 2. And he's asking the question, how long will ye judge? How long will you teach unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? How long will you do that? You meditate on that. How long are you going to do this? I just want you to think about it. How long are you going to do that right there? How long will you judge unjustly? How long will you teach people unjustly and accept accept the persons of the wicked? How long are you going to do this for? Don't look at what somebody else doing. Look at what you're doing. How long are you going to do this? The perverting of justice are offensive to God. Righteous actions, thoughts, and behaviors is contrary to the nature that the laws is given and governed by society. Followers of Christ are called to act justly, love, mercy, and walk humbly with God, recognizing that they serve a just and righteous creator. Actually, I want to tell you what, thinking about it, let me put it there because it's already here. We're going to look at Micah chapter 6. I want to put that there just in case so we won't forget. I just want to make sure you see this. That's why I'm putting it there. The Lord God, the Spirit of our God, has sworn by himself, saith the Spirit of God, the God of hosts. I arbor, he hate the excellency of Jacob and hate his palaces. Therefore, I will deliver up the city and all that therein, all flesh. All flesh. People sitting there, I don't get that one. Yeah, you ain't going to get it. I arbor the excellency of Jacob. I don't get it. Yeah, I know you don't get it. Because he harbor all flesh. That's why you don't get it. You gotta laugh from crying. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. I know you don't get it. You figure that one out. I was going to tell you, but figure it out. I was just getting ready to, but think about it. Figure it out. He hate the excellency of Jacob. Hate it. Wait a minute. He hate Jacob? Oh, you better know what he's talking about. Bible scholar. It's a simple answer to it. The simplest answer in the world. The simplest answers in the world is right there. So the same thing is this. We're looking at Proverbs, looking at 17:15. I ain't gonna tell you. I'm gonna let somebody figure that one out. In Proverbs 17, looking at verse 15. And please explain. Hey, that's my sweetheart there. But we can go in the back. See, just like I said, I knew somebody was gonna sit there like, please explain. I go in the back and I explain it, but I want somebody to tell me what that said. See, we got people who call themselves Bible scholars. I want to know what that means. I know what it means, but it's real simple. It's simple, super simple. And I'll go in the back for a minute, and I'm going to see who's going to tell me what it means, and then I'll tell you what it means. I promise you that. That I promise. So I'm going to set up a Zoom to where we'll go in the back for a minute, and we'll do it. I don't have a problem with it. Don't have no problem with it. In Proverbs chapter 17, verse 15, he that justified the wicked and he that condemneth the just, even they both are abominations unto the Lord. We just went through this. So what we're looking at and what we understand is a few things and what we're going to find out. Because I have some other things I want to put there that we need to do. And so what we want to do now, we want to put this back in now. We want to go into the Preceptor. We're going to put these things there. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to put them in the Preceptor. Then we're going to go in the back. We're going to answer the question for my wife. And I'm explain that for her. But then I want somebody to actually answer it. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go here. And the same thing is we got a what and we got abomination. I'm going to do the same thing. Abominations. I'm going to do the period. And we just going to do foods. So what we're doing here, we want to put in Deuteronomy. And we're going to put in we're going to put in 14:3. We want to make sure that is there. And then we want to put 14:3 through 6. So we have those. Over here at the bottom one, we want to put in Matthew chapter 16, verse 12. And everybody who has a preceptor, we're going to send you the FDF file, because I'm going to send it to my wife as soon as we come out of here. I'm going to send it to my wife to where her team can get this out. Matthew chapter 16, verse 12. So we got that one. We're going to look at Galatians. We're going to put another one here. We're going to look at Galatians now. And we're looking at 5:9. Some of them we're going to come back and add more to them. We're looking at 5:9. And as we're going through, we're going to look at 1 Corinthians that we did. 1 Corinthians. We're going to put that in there. And some of this is going to run over, so we're going to have to put some somewhere else. So we're going to be looking at that also. So we're looking at 1 Corinthians, we're looking at 3 and 6. So we got that one in there. We got Psalms 23, so we're going to put that one in there. And we just going to put the whole 23. We're putting in everything. So we just got Psalms 23, we're just going to run the whole thing. We're also looking at Hebrews 9:22. So then we're going to come back later. We're going to start putting some back with these, because some of them is using different verses from the same books. And we're going to look at Hebrews, and we're going to look at Hebrews 9:22. And now we're going to go down, and we're looking at Romans. We're looking at Romans. Let's get down to Romans. We're going to look at that one. We're looking at Romans. We're looking at 8:13. And we're looking at 1 Peter down here. And we're going to get down there. 1 Peter, we're looking at 5:8. And then we're going to go back to Galatians, because we got Galatians up here already. So we're going to put Galatians 5:1. So we got 5:1 also. So we got 5:9, 5:1. So now we also have Ephesians. Do we already have Ephesians up? No. So So we have Ephesians. And we're looking at Ephesians, we're looking at 6:10. And now we're going to be running a lot of Proverbs. So we want to make sure we might have to have 2 places for Proverbs. So we got to keep that in mind. So Proverbs, because we ran through a lot of Proverbs. We have Proverbs 17:15. So we ran that one. We got to go back to Psalms 19:9. So Psalms 19:9, we're going to put up here. 19:9, we got that one there. We have our Genesis. We don't have a Genesis on the board, so we got to create another one for Genesis. And then we're going to start putting in things there. 18:25. So we got 18:25, but then we're going to run the same thing. Psalms 19:9, we got that one there. We have Amos. We're looking at Amos. We're going to go through. We're looking at Amos 5:24. We have Psalms 11:17. So now we got to put this one over here. So you see how I'm doing this. And now we got some Exodus we got to fill up. And I thought we did have Exodus up there, but Exodus is not there. So now we're going to put Exodus in here. Because we got a lot of Exodus. We got Exodus. We have 20 and 16. We have 23 and 8. We've got 23, 6 and 8. So we're using that one. The same thing is, wait a minute, dang it. We got 20, 16, 23, 6, 8. Now I got it in there. We have Deuteronomy 1:17. We're going to go back over there. 1:17. We have Ezekiel. Told you we're going to end up needing another one to where we got to do it. Do I have Ezekiel already up there? And no. We're not running Ezekiel yet, so we're going to put Ezekiel there. And we're going to run Ezekiel 22:7. And then we have Exodus 23:6. We got those there. So we're running those. Now we have Isaiah, which we was talking about the warning. We got to remember that. We got Isaiah 1:10. And to remember that, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to drop down here. And I'm going to put abominations. So I'm putting that there just so we'll know. So we got that there, abomination of food laying. And you see, I'm going to read some of this here because this is in my notes here. So the same thing is, we got Isaiah. We don't have it at the top, so we got to put Isaiah. We're looking at 10:1. And same thing, we got Psalms. The same thing, we just checking to make sure we got everything there. We got Psalms 11:5. We don't have it there, so we want to put that there. We have Isaiah 10:2. We want to make sure. So we got one, and then we have the other one. So we'll do 10:1 and 2. And then we can keep moving forward. So we have Leviticus 19:13. So we're going to go back. We're going to check against, make sure we don't have it up there. So we don't see it there. So now we can put in Leviticus. So we're going to put in Leviticus, and we're going to put in 19:13. But we want to make sure it wasn't there first. But we do have Proverbs, and we're looking at Proverbs, we're looking at 6:17. I'll get that out. Yeah, we want to get in Proverbs 6:17. And then we also have Proverbs 19:28. And that's about all we can get up there. So we need some more. We're going to have to do another line. So we got Amos 5:7. And we got to put that up there. So we can also put 24 and 7 because they're in the same location. We have Isaiah 10:2, which we have. We have Psalms 82. We have too much up here right now for Psalms, so we have to put another Psalms here. So we got Psalms 82 in verse 2. And then we also have Micah. Let me see, Micah is not up there, so we have to put Micah. We have Micah 6 and 8. As well as Proverbs 17, which I believe we already have 17, 15, which we did. So these things is what we are doing and what we have up here. And then I'm going to save this. So now I can send this out. But this is the eating forbidden foods. I'm showing you this right here. And people are, I'm trying to sit there. People will get this. It says the similitudes related to eating forbidden foods and spiritual understanding emphasize the importance of discernment, purity, obedience, and faithfulness in one's walk with God. This is basically all we've been talking about. This is all we've been saying. It says they warn the followers of Christ against partaking in practices, teaching, or ideology. This is where I'm getting all my information from. It's from the Word of God. So it's telling you the call to eat what is wholesome is the true echoes of spiritual desire to seek wisdom, understanding the truth from God the Father and Creator, to avoid anything that might defile or lead one astray from the Shepherd of Israel. This states images, bread, grapes, fruit. That's why I'm giving you a physical thing to see, and why I want you to see it. Resonates. One that consisted of a spiritual vigilance in the fidelity of precepts of Yahawah, encouraging the followers of Christ to feast on the true bread of life, sustain nourishment of the soul. And I put the quote in there, John 6:35. We'll go look at it real quick to show you what I'm talking about. So we'll look at John 6:35 just to see what I'm saying. And we'll see that there, 6:35. And he says, in Yahawah, or Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger. That's why. He's the bread of life. He's going to give you the word of God. He that believeth on me shall never thirst. See, he's telling on me. Not saying believing you eat me. You believe on me. You should never thirst. That's why he talks the way he talks, but people take it another way. So we looking back at it, what we're saying here. So the same thing is eating unleavened bread. Unleavened bread, and I'm not going to go through and read all those, but it's eating unleavened. But you'll get this outline. So everybody who has a preceptor, you're going to get this outline. It says unleavened bread, unleavened symbolizing sin or false teachings, used as a metaphor in the New Testament. The avoidance of leavened bread portrays the call of purity and truth. And you have some other ones here. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6 through 8, keeping the holy day feast. You see it in Genesis 2:3. You see it in Ezekiel 44:24. You see it in Leviticus 19:30 and 26:2. I'm not going to go through them, but you'll see it to where I want you to go back and you can study this. And now we're going to look at the same thing. It's saying consuming sour grapes. This imagery, the same thing we're looking at imagery. It uses to describe consequences of sin, the transmission of iniquity. Ezekiel 18:2-4. If you learn of these doctrines, you will die. That's what we was talking about earlier. It tells you that also in Genesis chapter 2, verse 16-17. We're looking at the same thing. Yeah, I went up too fast. And then feeding on ashes. We want to look at that also. These things we got to look at. The metaphor for following something fruitful or deceptive. You see this in Isaiah chapter 44, verse 20. He that feedeth on ashes deceiveth his heart, and turneth him aside. That's what this talks about. This gets into all that to where we can understand it. Drinking the cup of God's wrath. This symbolizes partaking in judgment and suffering that results from disobedience to God's commandments, which you'll see in Revelation chapter 14, verse 10. So these studies, it goes into it, but this is for you to further your studies to get more into it. Consuming the sacrifices, making agreement with idols, the metaphor of partaking in idolatrous practices, false worship. You see that in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 10. To where you can get a better grip hold to where you see when you're eating doctrines. You're eating doctrines, just like eating physical food. That's why I got in here. It's telling you eating bread of wickedness. The metaphor of engaging in evil practices, partaking in unjust gains, tells you in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 17. Consuming sacrifice of idols, the metaphor of partaking the idolatrous practice of false worship, 1 Corinthians 8:10. Eating forbidden fruits. This symbolic act of Genesis represents disobedience to God's specific command, leads to sin and spiritual death. Tells you that in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 through 6. Because you see, they got into a doctrine with the devil telling them, you won't surely die. You'll be as guys as he is. They bought into that. They ate that doctrine. This gets into that. And the same thing is, let me see. And it's telling you, partaking in the table of the demons, symbolizing engaging in idolatrous and demonic practices, as warned against in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 21. Consuming blood and fat. In the Old Testament, these were specifically prohibited as were considered sacred to the Lord. It tells you in Leviticus chapter 3 and verse 17. So you see this here. And you see, let me see, I don't know why I keep. So the same thing, eating what is torn by beasts. This metaphorical expression is accepting or consuming something that is corrupted or defiled. This gets into everything the way we can understand it. Everything, to where we can clearly understand what's happening. So what we're going to do, hopefully that each and every person, we understood now to what's going on. And I want to make sure that everybody is good. I'm setting up a Zoom real quick to where we can answer that question, to where we can get it at the back. So we shouldn't be back that long, because I just want to see, make sure people understand it, and then we can move back. If I can have my wife to come and turn my light on in here, I appreciate it, sweetheart. If you can come turn this light on to where I can start letting people in as soon as we come out. So I do appreciate that if you can do that for me. And let me do this here. Let me do this here real quick. Y'all give me 1 second. So we're going to be doing a couple of things here. Let me take care of that. Give me 1 second. Thank you, sweetheart. And so now let me do this real quick. So we got that set. Let me get this out real quick. So if you refresh your screen, you'll be able to see that down. Be able to see that link in there. And I just want to get this out to my mom real quick, to where she have a link to get in the bag. So she is all set. So now we can come back and we can deal with what we're dealing with. So with that, we're gonna go into the back. So if you refresh your screen, you'll see the Zoom set up there, to where you guys can come in the back. And then we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with that answer, and then we're going to move forward on that. So hopefully that each and every person, you understood what went on and understand what we are able to do. So with that, I say to each and every person, until this weekend, which we have a very serious teaching coming up this weekend, to where hopefully each and every one of you guys will be able to join us. So until then, I say to each and every person, shalom.